Hey guys, Thomas over here at nursemoneytalk.com. And in this video, what I want to do is I want to talk about 10 things that I actually think every new nurse should strive to do, and for the most part, should actually start accomplishing within their first year of graduating nursing school and getting their job. Right out of the gate, probably one of the first things that needs to happen is you really need to look at getting better gear. And by gear, I mean just better quality nursing gear. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but I can really boil this down to two things, which is one, you're going to feel better about yourself and about the work that you're doing. And two, you're going to be able to do your job better. Depending on who you are, this could mean a whole host of things, but for me, I boil it down to really three things in particular that I think you really need to look at. The first one is scrubs. And just like my 2 and 3 on this list, I know that your school made requirements, money was tight, and you did what you could on a budget to just get it done, right? And very reasonable, makes a lot of sense. But now I think you need to up your game and get scrubs that, one, are going to look professional, that are going to fit well on you. The second thing that you should probably really consider stepping up on is the quality of shoes that you're wearing. As a nurse, and especially for most of the jobs that you're going to get as a new grad, you're probably going to be on your feet a lot. And so between all the stuff you're doing, moving from one end of the floor to the other, turning patients, and the amount of mileage you are going to put on your feet. I remember reading somewhere that a nurse can travel somewhere between 4 and 5 miles in a 12-hour shift. Because of that, you should get some good shoes. The third thing I think you should really consider upgrading is the stethoscope. As somebody who has been a nursing student and has taught nursing students, a lot of nursing students are rolling around with some really, really crappy stethoscope. Not all. Some of them actually have really, really nice stethoscopes that I could not even dream of having when I was a nursing student. But there are still some out there who have really bad stethoscopes. And I get it. You're supposed to have one. You need one. And so you have to make do with what you have. But as soon as you can, I would highly recommend upgrading your stethoscope. Now, there's a lot of different models out there, but I think you can probably do fine with ones from like Littmann, was it MDF, and I think the other one's like ADC or something like that. So the second thing you should do is to check on your student loans. Now, of course, if you don't have student loans, you can just skip down to the next section. But if you do, this is important. You need to check on your student loans because I know it's tempting to just pretend it doesn't exist. And you really shouldn't do that because it is going to come back and bite you in the butt. It just will. The other thing too is you don't know how bad it is unless you actually look at it. So if you have student loans, check and see who's holding on to your student loans, who's servicing your student loans, how much student loans do you have, what's the interest rate on it, what's your minimum payments, are you on a grace period, when do you have to start paying it back? Start trying to gather that information because once you have that information, then you can start formulating what to do. And this is also a really good time to start looking at potential student loan repayment programs. These could be repayment programs run by a state, or these could be employer like student loan repayment programs. These would be a great way to potentially be doing something that you would have to be doing anyway, which is work, while getting some relief for your student loans. Third one, start thinking about retirement and specifically start putting money into retirement. And nobody wants to think about this because it's just not fun. I mean, I get it. Saving money is not fun, especially saving money for something where if you're a young new grad, early 20s, mid 20s, it's never too early to start thinking about retirement. And you really need that time for compound interest to work in your favor once you're investing money. And so, at an absolute minimum, I would look at what your employer sponsored plans are, if any. By employers sponsored, I'm thinking about a 401k, a 403b, or if you work for a federal system, it would be like a TSP. Look and see if they're already pulling any money out, and if so, how much. Because some, depending on where you work, they'll by default start pulling out of your check for retirement. You'd be shocked how many nurses I've worked with, talking to them, they did not realize that some of their checks were already being sent out into their employee-employer retirement plan. And I think that should probably tell you more about how more people should honestly be paying attention to their checks. But anyway, see if they're already pulling money out, look and see how much they're taking out, and then check and see if they are matching any. And if so, how much are they matching? As an example, last time I checked, I don't know if this is still the case, the federal program, if you work for a federal hospital, they were matching, I think, a dollar for dollar up to 5% or something like that. And so if that's the case, then in a lot of cases, you probably should consider at least putting in the minimum to get to the match, right? Because at that point, I put in $1, you give me $1, I've doubled my money. Number 4 is to create a budget. If you haven't already been budgeting, you've graduated, you're going to start working, you're going to have more money coming in, especially if you're a traditional student, you've been on this journey for like 4 or 5 years, you're probably going to have a lot more money coming in than you've potentially have had in your whole life. So I think it's really important to start learning how to budget and start getting a handle on your personal finances. One of the best ways to start getting a handle on your personal finances is by creating a budget. I know budgeting gets a bad rap, and I can understand some of the reasons why that's the case. I do think that there are some people out there who really make budgeting more complicated than it needs to be. And I do think some people, their minds just aren't really wired a certain way to be able to handle a level of just kind of like detailed budgeting that some people recommend. So as an example, I'm the type of person who I have a software program, all our cards and everything runs through that software program, and I can literally break down all of our expenses. I have it categorized. I could tell you how much money we spent on gas yesterday. I could tell you how much money we spent on gas last month. Shoot, I could tell you how much money we spent on gas last year. And so a lot of that is the program does the work. If you want to know which program I personally use, check out the link on nursemoneytalk.com/learn to budget. That will take you to the page where you can kind of see which app I use and all my other tips for budgeting. But all that aside, I think the right software really makes a huge difference. It's a little bit of a legwork to get that set up, but once you have that attached and everything else, that makes a difference there. Number 5 is to build an emergency fund. So you graduated, you got your nursing job, and you're now living your life. Some of you guys now you're on your own. Parents are no longer helping and all this other stuff. The thing is that life happens. And because life happens, you need to be prepared for life. And I think one of the best ways to prepare for that is by making sure you have an emergency fund. And what an emergency fund is money you set aside and put into a savings account. Some people have you do other things for it. In general, I just would probably recommend for most people, you just put it into a savings account. And that money is primarily just going to sit there in case a big emergency happens. According to a survey from the Federal Reserve, about 40 or 50% of Americans could not handle a $400 or $500 emergency. That's kind of crazy if you think about it, because think about some of the emergencies you could have, and $400 is like nothing. Like it really is like nothing. So as an example, think about issues that you have with your car. What if you have issues with your tires and you need to get all of that changed? How much are brand new tires? What if you have to do any major work on your car? That's easily hundreds of dollars just gone right then and there. If you own a house, what are some of the expenses that you're having to spend on a house? Last season, I had to replace something on my AC unit outside. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that was like a $400-500 hit just to replace that one part. So I think it's really important to have some money set aside to where it gives you a cushion, and there's a level of anxiety that goes away when you know I can weather some of the storms that life could throw at me. Number 6 is to try to establish a health and wellness goal. Now, health and wellness, this is essentially boiling down to actually start caring about yourself, actually start focusing on self-care, actually start focusing on your health, because if your experience was anything like mine when I went through nursing school, there was a lot of focusing on just surviving and not really focusing on my own self-care. At one point, I couldn't even think of the last time I had set foot in a gym or had worked out. Those are all of the things that I would encourage you to really start thinking about. Start setting a goal. Do you want to get back into the gym membership, spa membership, getting regular massages, just kind of like self-care stuff. And this one ties into number 7, which is to prioritize work-life balance. I know the temptation is going to be, for some of you guys, once you start working, you're out of orientation, you're like, crap, I need to make some money. I'm going to work a crazy ton of hours. They're offering bonus shifts. I'm going to take it, this and that. And you end up burning yourself out really quickly. And especially since you're also still dealing with the process of learning what being a nurse is, learning the healthcare field, and just still so new in this field, that I would highly encourage you to, at least the first year, take a step back, do your full-time hours, try to learn, soak it all in, but if possible, try to hold off on the crazy amount of hours until after probably the 12-month mark, when hopefully you're more confident in yourself as a nurse. So number 8 is to, within that first year, try to set some short and long-term goals. This is career and life goals. Depending on how you think about how you set goals, it could be, where do you see yourself in 1 year? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And maybe a 10-year goal. And then once you set that out, then look at, what is the path I have to take to get to those goals. So some examples I'm thinking about is, well, maybe you want to be a manager. Maybe you want to, I don't know, be a CRNA. Maybe you want to be a nurse practitioner. Maybe your goal is to see more of the states. So you want to be a travel nurse, so then you can go do more traveling or something like that. So you set those goals, you find out how long does it normally take to get there. Then you have to think about, what is the path for me to hit those particular goals. Number 9 is, if possible, find a mentor. Some facilities are better at this than others, and depending on your personality, some people are going to be more apt to find this than others. I consider finding and befriending a potentially older nurse as it's like, you can absolutely be successful without it. You don't need one, but I think it's one of those things that can be very, very beneficial. And I'm not saying it's gonna be easy, and depending on where you're at, it might honestly be not possible. But if you can, it would be really nice to find an older nurse who whether formally or informally, is mentoring you in how to be a good nurse. And another good one is how to be a good nurse and navigating the specific issues in your particular department or facility that you work at. Before I get to number 10, if you're finding this video helpful, I would really appreciate the thumbs up to show the algorithms that you're finding this helpful, so it will push this video out to more new nurses. Lastly, if you are a new nurse, make sure to check out the New Nurse Academy by going to nursemoneytalk.com/New Nurse Academy. Link will be in the descriptions below. It's essentially a course that is going to kind of bridge the gap between nursing school and actually being a nurse. So check it out, nursemoneytalk.com/New Nurse Academy. Number 10 is to keep learning. Nursing is a constantly changing and evolving field. So it's important to stay up to date on the latest research and best practices. This doesn't get talked about enough, but if possible, try to attend conferences and workshops. Make sure to keep up with any healthcare legislations and policies that can impact your practice and also the well-being of your patients.